My name's Sonny Robbins, and this is Okichita. Welcome back to Okichita. I just want to do a little video about the Gunstock War Club and its origins, just to kind of clarify how it became to be this shape. So traditionally, our war clubs were just a straight stick with a ball on the end, usually made from a root burl. It was just a really big bludgeoning weapon. You use that big ball to crush. Right? Over time, we developed it to look like a gunstock of a rifle. And there was many reasons behind it, but there was a couple that I'll go over in a second. But for those that don't know what the Gunstock War Club is, it is a wooden club that is designed to look like a gunstock and usually would have a blade coming out of the elbow up on the top here. Okay? So traditionally what happened was, like I said, we had ball clubs, which is what we would use. And when the Europeans came, they obviously came with rifles. Us as indigenous people like to study and watch to learn. So that's how we learned a lot about medicine, watching animals, watching the bears. So when it came to learning how to defeat our enemy, we would watch them. So one thing that we noticed was that they had rifles, which obviously they could shoot with. A couple things with watching them, we were able to learn little things on how to evade being wounded by their weapons. But one of the things we noticed is they would shoot, and then they would have to reload, right? Because it was a musket, it was a single shot. So once they were trying to reload, if we were engaging on them, they would grab it by the barrel and start shooting, and start swinging, right? So they would have their weapon, they'd aim it, they'd turn, they'd shoot it off, and they'd have to repack, right? While they were repacking, if we started attacking, they'd grab it by the barrel and start swinging it at us, right? Hitting us with the gun stock of their rifles, right? So we saw that, and we already had a weapon that we used to use for that. So we thought, hey, we could start carving our weapons to look like the end of their gun stock, right? We didn't have weapons ourselves unless we were to defeat somebody and take it. So what we would do is we would carve our gunstock, or our war clubs, to look like the end of a gunstock, right? And then we would fashion on a spear to make it look like it. So we would have our gunstock, right, which we would then hold as we were patrolling, and we would take our spear and we would hold it along the end. And as we were patrolling around our villages, it would look like we were armed. So the chances of somebody coming and trying to attack was less because it was a visual deterrent that we had made to make it look like we were armed, when in fact we might not have been, right? The other benefit was, because of the shape, it became a little bit lighter, and we were able to wield it a little bit more. So because it wasn't so top heavy, it's still top heavy, but because it wasn't so drastically top heavy, we were able to wield it. So we studied the Europeans and the French again. And one of the things we noticed was a lot of their sword work, right? A lot of the sword work that they had from carrying their swords with them. So we started to manipulate our gun stocks in a more controlled manner. So instead of just running in and trying to club, now we started looking at it as, okay, well, how can we block and parry and strike, block and strike, right? How can we use our lethal weaponry of this weapon? And it became a lot more efficient as an actual weapon versus just a big club that we used to use to bludgeon each other, right? Because of having to model it after that Gunstock War Club, over time, we developed that structure of how to use it more as an effective weapon. And in a sense, became our primary weapon, okay? So that's a little bit of where it came from. People used to think that it would come from, we would take the rifles, we'd rip off the gun stocks, and we'd just use, or the barrels, and we'd just use the gun stocks. That's not true, right? If we got a rifle, we would keep it because that was important. It was something we didn't have, right? We'd use it to hunt, we'd use it for war, but we would definitely not break it apart. We would make our own clubs and hold it with our spears. And that way our clubs were made out of solid wood, as hard as could be, so that way when you are using it, it was effective, right? And then we would usually take daggers or anything like that that we could to put through. Sometimes there'd be one blade, sometimes there'd be three. That was up to the practitioner. But yeah, that's basically how the Gunstock War Club came to be. Okay? You'll notice in the plains, a lot of them are big, two-handed, and then as you get into more woodland area, you'll notice a little bit smaller ones that might be carried with one hand. Okay? Obviously with the trees and everything, you have to take into effect that you might not want as big of a weapon to swing around. Okay? Miłecz. No.